On a hot Monday morning, Lorelei and Mr. Rove woke up early to start their long drive to Camp Loon. Neither of them said much as they drove through the beautiful countryside. Their car pulled into Camp Loon's parking lot shortly after 11 o'clock. When the car came to a stop, Lorelei jumped out to stretch her stiff legs. The first thing she noticed about the camp was the large blue flag which flew proudly in the wind. In the middle of the flag was a picture of a loon with terrifying red eyes and a very sharp beak. "It's beautiful here," Mr. Rove commented as he exited the car and walked towards Lorelei. Lorelei couldn't deny her father's words as she stared at her surroundings. Several log cabins were aligned on either side of a very large cabin. All the cabins looked well maintained and were attractively decorated with blue and white gingham curtains and potted plants. Light blue morning glories grew tall against the log cabins, giving the impression of painted flowers. The cabins were settled on lush green grass that seemed too perfect for a camp where kids ran and played all day. To the right of the cabins were small rock formations which led to a sparkling blue lake. Wooden stairs built over the rocks gave easy access to the very inviting water. Lorelei approached the edge of the pink and gray rocks and then looked over. She saw several teenagers lounging on a long, narrow beach. There were even more campers in the lake. Some were swimming, while others paddled contentedly in canoes. "This seems like a very good camp," Mr. Rove noted as he gazed over the rocks. "You're wrong," Lorelei repeated, startling her father in the process. "This camp isn't very good." "It's great!" Mr. Rove let out a relieved chuckle. "We should sign you in at the camp's office." Lorelei nodded and then followed her father towards the administration cabin. A pleasant aroma of coconut sunblock filled the air as they entered. "Hello," a staff member greeted Lorelei and her father. "How may I help you?" "This is Lorelei Rove," Mr. Rove answered, while gesturing towards his daughter. "I registered her for Camp Loon a week ago." Lorelei couldn't help but roll her eyes. "He says I'm not a kid, but he treats me like one," she thought in exasperation. "Oh, yes," the staff member said enthusiastically. "We were waiting for you, Lorelei. It's nice to meet you." "It's nice to meet you too," Lorelei said politely as she shook his hand. "My name is Paul, Camp Loon's head administrator. I'm going to get your files and mark you as present," he explained as he headed towards another room in the cabin. "I'll be back in a minute. In the meantime, please feel free to say goodbye to your father." "Paul's right," Mr. Rove spoke up. "I better get going." "Have a nice vacation," Lorelei said as she gave her father a quick hug. "Thank you, Lorelei. I'm sure you'll have a great time as well." "Bye, Dad," Lorelei said, feeling a little sad as she watched him walk away. "All done," Paul said as he re-entered the room. "Since it's almost time for lunch, I'll show you the mess hall. We have our meals and assemblies there." As they walked towards the mess hall, Paul talked non-stop about the great games they played at Camp Loon. He seemed more excited and nervous than Lorelei. She found this extremely odd. Paul continued talking as they waited for the other campers to arrive in the mess hall. Soon, the room was filled with chatter and laughter as the campers filed in. Lorelei stood idly as each camper took a seat at the long wooden table, and Paul hurried away to talk to a man who wore a Camp Loon t-shirt. "May I have everyone's attention, please?" the man wearing the Camp Loon t-shirt asked. "We have a new camper with us. Her name is Lorelei Rove. Will everybody please come to the front of the room to give Lorelei the Camp Loon welcome?" Lorelei was pushed to the front of the room along with the other campers. She watched with wide eyes as they performed a weird ceremonial dance. The campers surrounded Lorelei, jumped up and down 3 times, stepped to the right, and then began jumping yet again. The strangest part of the ritual was the bird calls they made and the way they positioned their hands in a pointed manner upon their heads. Lorelei was mesmerized by the circular display. However, she also felt dizzy. "Okay, that's enough, guys," Lorelei begged, starting to feel frightened by the constant loon calls. "Stop it!" she cried when her first attempt to abort the ritual failed. The campers heard Lorelei's plea this time and stopped dancing and making bird calls. They all looked at her expectantly, as if they had no idea why she would be upset. "This is our way of welcoming you to the camp," the staff member said. "My name is Darren. I'm the head honcho around here. I apologize if we scared you." "You just caught me off guard," Lorelei said with a red face. "To avoid surprising you again, I better explain Camp Loon's policies and how we run this place. First of all, I expect all campers to follow one simple rule. Never, under any circumstances, are you allowed to leave the campgrounds without supervision. Secondly, we play a lot of games at Camp Loon. There are 3 teams: the Loons, the Looners, and the Looniest. Lorelei, you'll start in the Loon group. If you play hard and prove yourself worthy, you might get invited to join the Looners next season." Darren then addressed the rest of the campers. "We'll be playing soccer or baseball next. But first, it's time for lunch." Lorelei followed the other campers as they rushed towards the trays of food which a lunch lady handed out. Lorelei waited patient for her lunch, happy to see that it consisted of a club sandwich and a large salad. She gratefully took the tray of food and then searched for a place to sit. "Hey, Lorelei, sit with us!" Lorelei looked up to see a tall girl with black hair waving to her. "Thanks," Lorelei said as she sat in the chair the girl offered to her. "No problem. My name's Claire, and this is Dora and Felicity. We're all in the Looniest team." Congratulations?" "I've been here for 6 years, so I can show you around the place," Claire said. "This is my 4th year," Dora chimed in. "I've only been here for 3 years, but I'm in the Looniest team because I'm the most athletic camper here," Felicity interrupted. "And the most modest," Lorelei thought, while suppressing the urge to roll her eyes. "Are you athletic?" Felicity asked Lorelei. "I guess so. I play hockey." "Will you be staying for the winter, too?" Claire asked with wide eyes. "No," Lorelei replied, slightly startled by the question. "I have to go to school." "I stay here all year long," Claire stated. "So do Felicity and I," Dora added. "You mean you live here?" Lorelei stared at the 3 girls in shock as they nodded their heads. "I thought this was a camp, not a boarding school." "This camp is a lot of things," Claire said simply. "You'll soon see all the great things Camp Loon has to offer." "What do you mean?" Lorelei demanded. "You better eat your lunch," Darren interrupted Lorelei as he seemingly appeared out of nowhere. "You'll need a lot of strength for today's games." Lorelei looked at her once appetizing lunch, which lay untouched on the table. She had forgotten all about it when Claire, Dora, and Felicity announced they were permanent residents at Camp Loon. "Don't you like our food?" Darren asked, when Lorelei failed to speak. "I was just getting to know some of the other campers," Lorelei explained. "I'm glad you're so anxious to meet new friends, but you should become acquainted with the campers in the Loon team. They're more on your level." "Thanks for the suggestion," Lorelei said through gritted teeth, "but I'm fine where I am." "Suit yourself, Lorelei," Darren replied. "You may eat lunch with whomever you please. Just remember which team is yours when it comes time to hit the baseball diamond." "What's his problem?" Lorelei muttered as she watched Darren walk away. He's a bit eccentric, Claire answered. Neither Lorelei nor the three girls said anything else as they ate their lunches.